Hello and welcome to the Kings Rock podcast, part of the Kings Rock Network. I am one of your hosts, Bolt Up, and I'm here with my co-host, Deathgiver.
Bro, stop sounding like a documentary reader guy.
Dude, if anybody watched any of my videos, that's what I sound like.
How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Deathgiver from the Deathgiver Gaming YouTube channel.
For this podcast, we will be giving a beginner-friendly look into competitive Pokemon tournaments, metas, and a whole lot more. Death and I both have backgrounds in other games as well, so once per month we may sprinkle in a bit about other card games and possibly bring on guests that are experts in those games.
So the podcast will be a weekly podcast released most likely on Thursdays, sometimes maybe even on the weekend, so we can recap previous tournaments and talk about any upcoming major tournaments as well, or things that we've done over the weekend during our play in tournaments or local play.
All right, so Death, I think we should give a little intro on the two of us.
I agree.
Death and I have known each other for about 10 or 11 years. We actually started working together at a local credit union, and somehow we became friends and have been friends ever since.
Yeah, I don't understand how that happened either. I couldn't stand the guy.
Well, let's see, what have we played? Magic, we played Fortnite, Smite. What other games have we played?
Destiny, Pokemon. We played a lot of Pokemon Sword and Shield. We played
we did a lot of the VGC battles.
Leaf Green, Fire Red. We've done quite a bit throughout the years.
And you still have not gotten me to play Yu-Gi-Oh yet.
Yeah, that's your loss. It's the better game.
Maybe I'll have to learn how to play that if we ever do a Yu-Gi-Oh episode. Which, if it's
it's not a if we ever do a Yu-Gi-Oh episode. It's when we do a Yu-Gi-Oh episode. You might want to know what's going on.
Yeah, we'll see. I'll have to learn how to play that game. I have been playing competitive Pokemon for about a year. I recently went to the Peoria Regional Championship, and I'd like to go to at least one more this year. There's one in Indianapolis that we'll see. Maybe might be able to go to that one. I've been grinding a lot of cups and challenges this season, and we'll talk about a little bit more later on what those do and how those are relevant to the season.
And then Bolt got me into coming back to the game because I took pretty much 20 years off from the game. He started bragging about his achievements in tournaments and local play and was telling me about a Charizard deck that I fell in love with the card, so I decided to come back. And now after playing online for a little bit, I'm thinking about getting back into the competitive scene as well with the Pokemon game. So we'll see how it goes.
You know, Charizard, the most overrated Pokemon out there?
Charizard, well, the third best Pokemon in my book. Mewtwo is still the love of my life, but Charizard's up there.
And the most overrated Pokemon there is.
He is not the most overrated Pokemon. Pikachu is. And then it's Eevee.
I love Eevee. So I was at the regional, and I was selling a bunch of bulk cards to one of the vendors there, and I had pulled up an old Charizard, not old, but not recent Charizard card, and I mentioned that, this might not actually be bulk, and I might, need to look up the value, and the guy laughed, and he said he's never seen a Charizard that's worth less than $1.
That's impressive.
Everybody loves their Charizards.
I have the original Charizard card, so yeah. I'm wondering how much that's worth. Yeah, I love that card. It was in my original deck.
Is it a first edition?
It is, I think so, actually. The first edition of the super popular one that came out, the first one that came out, 120 HP and like 2 attacks. Fire Spin, I think, was one of the attacks.
You're talking about like the base set Charizard?
Yeah, the original one. The original Charizard. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take that off your hands if you want. If you don't want it.
I like looking at it every once in a while.
So I also have a YouTube channel, Bolt Up, where I'll be sharing gameplay videos of meta and some possibly future meta decks, especially now with Paradox Rift coming out. I'll be playing some new decks with some of the cards from Paradox Rift in there. And most recently, I just posted a video about how to get the most out of Pokemon TCG Live, ways to spend different currencies, and just get the most bang for your buck as far as the in-game currencies there.
And then, as you know, I got my YouTube channel, Deathgiver Gaming. Mine is pretty much based on the Charizard deck gameplay. I just recently released a video on how to play the Charizard deck, the one that I run right now. which is pretty much Charizard, Entei, and Pidgeot. So hope you guys and take a look at those channels and drop us a like and subscription on some of our videos.
I believe that the deck list that you're running there is similar to the deck that Azul just took to top 4 at Toronto.
So he
The
stole
deck
my deck
list
because I've
should
been running it for about
spoil
2
your
months
deck.
now.
I believe the deck list will be posted tomorrow, so by the time this is out, the deck list will be posted. I've been kind of watching Twitter to see if Azul has released his deck list, and he has not at this point. But just watching the gameplay, it looks like it was pretty similar to yours, if not the same. So
Okay.
when that comes out, we'll see, what he took there. Somebody who has been on the record over and over again as saying Charizard is not good, and then he pulled this out for this regional and placed top 4. So I'm curious to see what his reaction is based on his finish on that one.
It's not good, but I still say Charizard is a tier B deck. Tier B deck. It's not on the lines of like, I don't know. Actually, it might be a tier A. Now I'm trying to figure out what deck I would say I fear, but I don't really fear a deck out there. So I don't fear Chien-Pao. I've beaten that deck enough.
You should. You don't beat me with it.
No, I don't beat you with it, but for some odd reason, every time I play you, I get bricks. But I've beaten you a couple times with it.
Chien-Pao is a free win against Charizard.
I wouldn't say free. I got a couple videos that show that that's not true.
I said generally. And so if Chien-Pao is not popular, I think Charizard's a solid play. I think that's one of the things that I heard when I was watching some of the gameplay, that the broadcasters were talking about if the Charizard decks can dodge Chien-Pao, they should be in good shape because of how good a matchups it has everywhere else.
Yeah, there's one other deck that I kind of am a little scared of, and that's the electric deck with Raichu. That deck can give me a little bit of trouble as well.
Which we'll talk about this a little bit later in the cast, but Miraidon did end up taking the Toronto regional title, so we'll talk a little bit about that and see what decks it had to play against and how it got there. But yeah, Miraidon did end up winning the Toronto regional. Also, one more little tidbit about myself is I have a little bit of background in competitive Magic. Played through college a little bit after that. Went to a lot of the major tournaments in the area. So I'm looking a little bit forward to the Magic video or Magic episode that we have in the future. I've also been playing some Lorcana lately, as hard as it is to find cards. That is a really fun game, and so I'm looking forward to doing an episode on that as well.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. I don't even know what Lorcana is. It sounds like some type of Magic game that, I don't know. Isn't that the Disney one that you keep talking about?
That's the Disney game, yes, and it is really fun.
I'll take your word for it.
Problem is, it's hard to make a competitive tournament with only one set.
Well,
There's been one set released so far. The second set's coming up within a couple of weeks, I think.
They'll eventually get enough in there where it'll be just like any other card game.
All right, Death, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, so of course, I'm Deathgiver. I started Pokemon TCG back in mid to kind of late 90s. I started out with the Charizard deck. It was back when that Charizard card dropped, so I made a deck out of that one and played that for a couple years. And then, of course, now I'm back using Charizard again on my YouTube channel and playing pretty much daily on that. I switched to Yu-Gi-Oh! Around the end of the 90s during the Duel Monsters and GX era. I ran a light deck, which was pretty good. I was competitive in that for a couple years, won a couple tournaments, placed high in a couple other tournaments. So it was a fun time. And then I also dabbled in Magic back then. Had some friends that played Magic. I never got competitive with it, but I did play it for fun. It was pretty good. I played a black and blue deck. I didn't too much win against my friends that much with that deck because they were competitive, where I was more just playing for fun. So they used to kick my ass a lot. But for the most part, I played the three Pokemon game or the three Pokemon Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic. I dabbled in Digimon. Digimon was fun. I dabbled in Dragon Ball Z. That was interesting. But the main three were the Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic that I've played. And then, as I was saying earlier, thinking about getting back into the Pokemon competitive scene or getting into the Pokemon competitive scene. I never did do competitive back then, but thinking about doing it now, especially since Bolt is having success. So I think I can do just as well as he can, especially with my Zard deck. I think I can do some damage with it. So looking forward to getting into the competitive scene.
Okay, so now because this has become a hot button topic in the Pokemon realm here, what, in your opinion, before I tell you why, I want to know kind of an unbiased opinion here. In your opinion, what is the game that requires more skill between Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon? Since you played both, what game? And I don't want to hear, well, it depends. No, which one requires more skill?
No, there's no. It depends. It's definitely Yu-Gi-Oh. Because Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't get rid of cards from any time in their history that you can play a card from 1990 all the way up till 2023, whereas Pokemon kind of eliminates cards. Same with Magic. Um, I feel that Yu-Gi-Oh is the more guild base. Also, with the decks that are out now today, I would definitely say Yu-Gi-Oh is the more skilled base. Pokemon is the easier one to get into because I've actually tried to get it to both of them at the same time, and Yu-Gi-Oh is just way, way different, way harder than what Pokemon is. Pokemon hasn't changed since the 90s. Yu-Gi-Oh has evolved a lot since the 90s.
Now, does that require more skill or does that require more adaptability from the player?
It would require more skill and it would require more knowledge. I don't know about adaptability because if you have a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge, you still can play the game. It's just that you're gonna have to learn the new summoning mechanics. Because back when I played, the big thing with it's like with Pokemon, the resource is energy, Magic, the resources is mana, but with Yu-Gi-Oh, it was tributes. Well, they've kind of eliminated tributes, and now it's all about special summoning. So you got to know your stuff on what the special summon, what cards is good, what's the meta out there. Because you walk in there with a Dark Magician deck, now you're gonna get destroyed by whatever's out there. So I would not recommend coming back to Yu-Gi-Oh using Dark Magician or Blue Eyes White Dragon if you're from my area, the Duel
You
Monsters
just
era.
get outclassed.
You will get royally outclassed. Trust me, I know because I've played Dark Magician, and right now my record is like 3-33. So it's not good.
Okay, so the reason why I asked this is, and we'll talk a little bit about more about this towards the end here, but there have been 3 North American regional championships in Pokemon this year: Pittsburgh, Peoria, and Sacramento. I guess the 4th. There are 4 now because Toronto just happened. But the 3rd one, Sacramento, the finals of that one had 2 players that this was the first regional that they have ever played in for Pokemon,
No,
and
nice.
at least one of them was a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player. I don't know if the other one was, but at least one of them was a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh player. And so it is a running joke, a running bash, something in the Pokemon world now about how much harder Yu-Gi-Oh is in Pokemon because this Yu-Gi-Oh player can come in here with no real history of playing Pokemon and come in and beat all the pros.
Well, deck building is deck building. I mean, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter what card it is. If you know how to build a deck in one, you're gonna know how to look for cards and build a deck in another. So it, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easier as far as that goes. It's just that the Yu-Gi-Oh players probably played it for 20, 30 years, knows how to build a great Yu-Gi-Oh deck, and looked at Pokemon and said, "Hey, these cards look good," and went in and killed Pokemon.
Well, okay, so now I understand that. I understand that. My Magic background has allowed me to pick up this game fairly easily. I've only been playing less than a year, and I feel like I'm at a pretty good level at this point. And it's just because I have the history of card games and I'm able to pick it up. You're feeling that as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
But the guy that won the Sacramento regional, I mean, it's just a pretty much net deck colorless Lugia list. There's nothing too crazy in there, too different. So I mean, that was pure gameplay. However, the second place list was just an absolute off the wall Arceus deck that had Gyarados VMAX that hasn't seen competitive play since I've been playing.
And was this
It's
the
just
Yu-Gi-Oh player?
I don't remember which one is the Yu-Gi-Oh player, but I know that they both just came in and just beat the existing pros. Like Azul finished 7th. He made top 8. Sawyer Melvin, he finished 3rd. He's a big name around. And these 2 guys just came in here and just wiped the floor with them. And the best part was during, like, throughout top 8 and through the finals, there were so many play mistakes that people have pointed out since then. And it's just, I mean, it's got to be from these players who just haven't played a ton of Pokemon. And the reason why they're here is because of the huge prize payouts that Pokemon gives now. $10,000 for winning a regional championship, $1,000 for finishing in top 32, and then various prize amounts in there. So, I mean, it's definitely a lot of, like the money that's bringing in a lot of these players from other games. Because I mean, does anybody have any idea what the prize payouts are for Yu-Gi-Oh? I mean, it's nothing compared to this.
I have no clue. I would think it could be similar because I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh is the third biggest card game out of the group, so
Well, yeah, but
I don't know.
Magic's the biggest, and Pokemon's prize payouts dwarf Magic.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought
it's because
Pokemon was the
Pokemon
biggest.
is the largest intellectual property in the world. But I believe Magic's card game is bigger.
Okay. I'll have to do some research on that, but
With
can't argue.
with Pokemon being as big as it is, I mean it makes sense. And this is the first season that we've seen this big of payouts from Pokemon.
Yeah.
So it's just bringing in these players from other card games, Yu-Gi-Oh specifically, that can come in and just kind of pick up and do these kinds of things at this North American regional here.
Yeah, like I said, it's a card game, so it's not gonna be too hard to pick it up. And I do think Yu-Gi-Oh is a little bit more challenging than Pokemon, but
Well, we'll see about that if I ever learn how to play and we do our Yu-Gi-Oh episode here. All right, so we talked about regionals. I mentioned cups and challenges earlier. Let's talk about how the Pokemon season actually works here. We just had the last World Championships was the weekend of August 11th. The season kind of goes. There's a little bit of a break after the World Championship, and then we have the whole season until we have the next year's World Championship, which the one for the 2024 season is going to be in Hawaii. And so the way the season works is we have regional championships throughout North America, Europe, Latin America, and Oceania. And then at various points in the season, there are also 3 international championships. There used to be 4. They dropped the Oceania International Championship. And so now there's a European International Championship, Latin American, which is coming up in about a month, a little less than a month, and then the North American International Championship. You get championship points for placements at the regionals and the international championships along with prize payouts. Then you can use those championship points to earn a spot in the world championships. Now, what's really cool about Pokemon that is different than a lot of other games, sports, anything like that, is every event outside of the world championships is an open. So anybody in the world can enter these regionals, can enter the international championships, and that means anybody in the world has a shot at making the world championships.
that's pretty interesting because I'm not sure. Like I said, it's been a while since I've been in the Yu-Gi-Oh competitive scene. I think from my memory back in the day, you had to get points in order to be able to move up to like the regionals and stuff like that. But don't quote me on that because it's been again 20 years since I played.
Magic's similar. It has a pro tour, which you have to earn. You have to earn points by. I don't remember how accurate this is, but I'd always used to joke because you had pro tour qualifiers, but then to qualify for the pro tour qualifier, you had to play in a qualifier. So I always joked that there was a pro tour qualifier to get to the pro tour qualifier to get on the pro tour. So I mean, there's Magic kind of had a gate kept to where you had to work your way up to get to those big name events, but um,
Yeah.
Pokemon, essentially everything is an open, so everybody in the world has a shot to make it to Worlds.
So out of curiosity, because you're saying everybody has a chance to make it into Worlds, how do you make it? Like, what place do you have to get? Is it like top 2 automatically gets into the World, or is it top 1, or how does that work? Top 8, top 10, top 25?
Well, I'm glad you asked because that's exactly what I was going to talk about next. So they made a change this year, which the the big change was if you win a regional championship or a special event in North America or Europe, you get an automatic bid to Worlds.
And that's top 1.
That is number one. And that is huge news because a lot of people can't make a ton of regionals. I mean, they have them all over the country, all over the continent. There's only one close to where we are, There's a couple that are within driving distance, but other than that, you'd really have to travel to get there. And so, being able to just win one regional to get to the World Championships makes it really accessible. I say that, but you have to win a regional of 1,800 people. But it makes it more accessible than it would any other way.
True.
But outside of winning a regional, you have to get 600 in the U.S. and Canada. You have to get 600 championship points to qualify.
They do have a point system.
Yes, it's 600 for U.S. and Canada, 500 for Europe, 350 if you're in Latin America, 300 if you're in Oceania.
Interesting. Why is Europe only 5?
The amount of events. North America has the most regional championships. Europe has the second most, and Latin America and Oceania just have less. So they make it a little bit more accessible if you're a player from one of those regions. I pulled up the points that you get for placements in regional championships.
Good, because that was going to be my question.
First place, if you win a regional, you get 200 championship points. So you get 200 out of your 600 if you're a North American player. Second place, you get 160. Third and fourth, you get 130. Fifth and eighth, you get 100. And then it trails all the way down to the top 512. You get 20 points if you are in the top 512.
So, it's going to be a lot of tournaments you're going to have to play if you're getting that low.
Exactly. So that's why it's a big deal that if you win a regional, then you get an automatic bid. And I can't find it right now, but I believe if you get first or second in an international championship, you get an automatic bid to Worlds as well. So
Okay.
the runner-up in an IC also gets an automatic bid to Worlds.
Okay.
But yeah, so if you finish top 8 in a regional, you would have to hit 6 regionals to be able to do that.
Which is
And
not
now they
too
actually
bad.
No, I mean it's when you're good, but there is some amount of luck when it comes to this. So, I mean, odds are if you go to 6 regionals, you're not going to hit top 8 in all 6 of them, even if you are a player of Azul GG's level. Now, that being said, there's another little wrench in the plan. Is Pokemon has what's called a best finish limit, which means they only count a certain number of your events that you go to. For example, regionals is 6. If you go to 10 regionals, you only get your points counted for your best 6 results. International championships, there is no limit. There's 3 of them. You get points for all 3 of them.
Okay.
We're going to take a step down now because in addition to regionals and international championships, you can also earn points from cups and challenges. Cups and challenges are more at the local level. Cups can be run by stores every quarter, and challenges can be run by stores every month. If you win a league cup, you get 50 points. If you win a league challenge, you get 15 points. And then the points go down a little bit. Generally, top 8, you're guaranteed points as long as the event has more than 21 or more players. Then top 8 gets some amount of points.
So with that point system, that's not really worth getting the cups. I mean, it's good for practice, but to think you're going to make the big tournament off of just winning locals is not going to be it.
But yeah, you have to get the placements at the regionals. But the cups are good for getting the last little bit of points you need. There's a best finish limit of 6 for league cups. So if you finish in first place in 6 league cups, that's 300 points right there. So you can get there. You can get there. And then for challenges, it is also 6. So what is that? 15, 30, 60, 75 points. So you can get 75 points from challenges and 300 points from cups.
So that's not too bad. No, so I take it back. Yeah, that would definitely mean that you would be able to kind of get there.
But it's a good supplement for if you want to go to local regionals and you're placing high enough. So it's a good supplement for that. And plus, like you mentioned, it's good for practice because this is where if you want to play competitive Pokemon locally, this is what you do. A lot of times, like store league nights, they're a little more casual. You get some players playing fun decks, newer players coming in, just kind of learning the game. But when you go to cups and challenges, you are going to be playing some high level competition. And just as an example, the most recent cup I went to, I played against, or I didn't play against him, but Grant Shen was there. Grant Shen has top aided one or two regionals this year. Two, because he just top aided Toronto this year. This week he placed 12 at another one, so he's a superstar player. He was there. Um, Keaton Ash is a local player that finished 20th at the Peoria Regional, and he was there playing. So we had two really solid Pokemon players playing at this cup.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the level you get when you go to a league cup. It's actual competition. You can really kind of test your skills there, and then if you can succeed in league cups, then you take the step up and try to go to that regional and see how you do, where you play against a lot of Grant Shins instead of just one. So let's talk a little bit more about the regionals. There's been 4 regionals this year: Pittsburgh, Peoria, Sacramento, and Toronto. Pittsburgh was won by Andrew Estrada with Turbo Lost Zone.
Terrible deck. Sard just eats that deck alive.
I flat out hate playing it, and I hate playing against it. But I mean, there's
I
no
don't mind
denying. Outside of Zard, it's a good deck. So, and for proof, Andrew Estrada won Pittsburgh with it, and then right after that, Raymond Long won Peoria with it. So 2 straight regionals won by Lost Box. The one in Peoria wasn't Turbo; it was a Zamazenta build, so it didn't have the 2 prizers that the Turbo Lost Box does. But it's more or less, very, very similar. And then Sacramento was won by Colorless Lugia. And then we have Toronto, which was just won by Miraidon. So those are what has happened in the first 4 regionals this year. We're going to use the results of the Toronto regional to kind of discuss what some of these meta decks are, what are in them, and kind of how they're used. So if I pull up the final standings of the Toronto regional, we'll look at the top 8. JW Creewall, who is most known for being a teammate of Tricky Jim, a famous Pokemon YouTuber. He's a teammate of him. That whole team plays Miraidon. And of course, that's what JW Creewall played here at Toronto. And now the Miraidon deck it's focused on Miraidon EX that use the Tandem Unit ability that can pull basic lightning Pokemon from your deck, put them on your bench. So what it does is its goal is to get that Miraidon out early, and then it can use Tandem Unit to get Mareeps, which pull out Flaffy. The Flaffy allows you to get lightning energy from your discard pile onto a Pokemon with the Dynamotor ability. It uses Raikou V, which uses the fleet-footed ability to draw cards and can do massive damage with just 2 energies. And then its finisher is Raichu V, which can essentially do unlimited damage as long as you have the energies out there on the field.
Yes, and I've lost to that deck a lot.
So what makes this deck really good, and the reason why it can beat Charizard,
is Raichu. It's just Raichu. Raichu being able to one-shot Charizard is just ridiculous.
And not many cards can. And that helps. This deck has that reach that a lot of other decks don't. But there are 2 different versions of this deck, and this team has actually been played both. There's the Path to the Peak version, which is what JW Creole was playing, I believe, at this one.
Hate that card. Hate that card.
Because it shuts you down.
Shuts you down too.
It shuts me down too. And then the other one is the Beach Court version. The Beach Court version is more focused on getting 2 Raikou Vs out there, being able to retreat and draw cards with fleet-footed for both Raikou Vs. Just try to get those cards in your hand. Where the Path to the Peak version, the Miraidon deck sets up, drops Path to the Peak, and they're fine. They've already used their Tandem Unit. If they have the cards that they need, they don't need to do fleet-footed anymore. And then Path to the Peak shuts down Excalibur, or Chain Pow. It shuts down Gardevoir. It shuts down Charizard. It shuts down Lugia if it's there fast enough.
And it shuts down Pidgeot.
One of the reasons why this deck is as good as it is because it can attack for possibly 220 damage on turn 2 or turn 1 going second.
Mm-hmm.
Other decks just don't have that speed. So if you can get that set up and drop that Path to the Peak down on turn 1 going second, there's not much your opponent can do. And if you have a Judge on top of that, you Judge, you Path to the Peak, now your opponent has 4 cards in their hand they didn't have before, and they're under Path to the Peak. So that really puts them in a tough spot Miraidon can just now rapid fire attack.
Yes. Yes.
That's what J.W. Krewall did to get this first place finish. Second place was a deck that is near and dear to my heart, and that is Gardevoir. Gardevoir is what I took to the Peoria Regional. It's what I played in all the cups and challenges I went to up until the regional, and since then I have retired that deck as I've just put a lot of time into it, and I kind of wanted to change things up.
That and my Charizard deck killed his deck, so he got mad and had to switch to Chien-Pao.
Yeah, something like that. Pretty sure we're all 50-50.
Yeah, more like 75-25.
Yeah, I played too much Charizard at that regional too. I hate playing Charizard with Gardevoir. This deck gets Purlia with Refinement out there, so you can discard a card and then draw 2 cards. And their goal is to get 3 Refinement Curlias out. Evolve 1 into Gardevoir with the Shining Arcana ability, and the other one into Gardevoir EX. Gardevoir EX can then pull the energies out of the discard pile, put them onto a Psychic Pokemon any way they like, and the Pokemon takes 2 damage. So the Shining Arcana Gardevoirs will then take that energy and use their attack Brainwave, which does 30 damage plus 30 more for every psychic energy attached to it. So those two work very well in tandem, and then throwing in the Refinement Curlia, you're now able to discard those psychic energies, draw 2 new cards, so then you can bring those energies back with the Gardevoir EX. So this deck, it's kind of like a 2-prize deck because you have Zacian V, which its attack is identical to the Shining Arcana Gardevoir, and you have Gardevoir EX, but then all the other attackers are single prizers. So it's a deck that plays like a single prize deck, meaning your opponent has to take pretty much 6 knockouts instead of 3, 4, or 5 by hitting a 2-prizer.
Plays kind of like it, but I disagree because usually when I win against you, it's because I'm bossing the big Gardevoir out and I'm taking my 2 prize.
Charizard is the one deck that can do that because Charizard, Dark type Charizard EX can one-hit KO the Gardevoir EX even with no prizes taken. So that is the one deck that can do that, and that does give Charizard at least somewhat of an edge against Gardevoir. No other deck can one-hit KO a Gardevoir EX that early.
Right, you could. Right, you can.
Well, it wouldn't do it that early though.
And Chien-Pao could.
Yeah, okay, yes. That's true too, but yeah, Chien-Pao also just has a gigantic advantage over Gardevoir, but yeah. You're right.
I know.
Moving on to third place, Azul Garcia Grego.
With the best deck in the game, the Zard deck.
He is the best player in North America and one of the best players in the world, probably the most popular player, at least in North America, possibly in the world. Now, Azul Garcia Grego is playing Charizard. Death, tell us a little bit about the Charizard deck.
So with the Charizard deck, it's pretty much you want to hit early, you want to hit as often as possible, and you want to control it. Your draw mechanics are going to be Pidgeot and Entei, at least for my deck. I know some people run Arceus, but I didn't too much care for that. Forest Seal Stone is huge with that Entei, and it's a first turn deck. Like you want to go first because your second turn you're wanting to bring Pidgeot and Charizard to the field, and you're wanting to do as much damage as possible, with hopefully sacrificing a Zard or a Entei so you can boost your Charizard up to a 240 attack. Because at that point it's one shot in almost anything, and you're wanting to control the field with boss pretty much.
All right, and then fourth place in the regional was Christian Moreno with Single Strike Lugia. Now, what's a little bit special about this is Single Strike
Let me
Lugia.
interrupt for a second. Is this the deck that you were talking about that originally you tried to get me back into the game with?
Yes, I think so.
Which, by the way, Lugia is my second favorite Pokemon. But I don't know. I just couldn't get back in it with him. But Zard got me back. All right, go ahead.
Zard got you there. So, what's unique about this deck, or different about this deck, is because of the rise of Charizard, Lugia, and the addition of Mew EX, Lugia has changed from the single strike variant, which relies on Stonejourner, Tyranitar V, and it has transitioned into colorless Lugia, which it's more of a single prize deck that relies on Snorlax's now Mew EX to be able to take those wins. Weirder V is the finisher for that deck.
Yeah, but his deck doesn't
And
have a Snorlax in it.
correct. This is the single strike variant, which is the older variant that most people deemed unplayable with the Charizard now. So it actually turns out that as we're looking through these lists, that all of the top finishing Lugia decks were the single strike variant. So 4th place, 10th place with Gabriel Smart, 16th, and then Reagan at 17. All of those players are playing the single strike version of Lugia, which is interesting that all these Lugia players have been now transitioned back to the single strike. But it worked because they're all placed really high. I don't even see a colorless Lugia. There we go. Maybe 61st is the top colorless Lugia deck I see. So the colorless Lugia decks were not winning, and the single strike Lugias were. But what this deck does is it relies on getting 2 Archeops in the discard pile, evolving your Lugia V into a Lugia V-Star, using Lugia V-Star's ability to put the 2 Archeops on the bench, and then you can get energy out of your deck onto your Pokemon using the Archeops abilities. So it's a way to rush energy out there and hit hard early. All of these players have now transitioned into using this single strike Lugia variant again. So I'm curious to see how this is going to go forward in the future.
I'm curious about it too, especially with because with the Lugia V Star, that's a 2 prizer, and then with that Urshifu V Max, that's a 3 prizer. I mean, that's a lot of prizes in 2 Pokemon that
Yeah,
they
I'm
wipe you,
wondering.
you're going out.
Wonder if Duraludon VMAX has scared people into playing single strike again, because colorless has no way to deal with Duraludon VMAX, and single strike has that Urshifu. So I
True.
wonder if that's why. Or I mean, the single strike one definitely just hits harder. So I wonder if they're just trying to hit harder faster.
Probably.
Moving on to the 5th through 8th, we're going to briefly touch over these. We have a Lost Zone Goodra deck that finished 5th. 6th and 7th were both Xianpao Baxcalibur, which is my favorite deck to play right now. And then we have 8th place is Turbo Lost Zone. So it's a very diverse top 8 for this regional, which is really fun because this is the last regional of this format. The next major tournament, I believe, is the Latin American International Championship, and that will be Paradox Rift Legal. So we'll be seeing Goldango, we'll be seeing Iron Hand ZX, possibly Roaring Moon, all of these new cards coming out in Paradox Rift. I think that's going to take us to the end of this episode.
We'll be talking about the Paradox Rift release and what it'll do for the meta in our next episode.
Yeah, I just finished with a Paradox Rift pre-release today. Had some fun playing with some of the new cards, so I'm excited to talk about those. Thank you all for joining us in the first pilot episode of the Kings Rock podcast. Hope you join us again next week. And everyone, have a good evening.
Peace out, guys.